Добрий день, мене звати
Good afternoon. My name is Olga Tamanama. I'm very happy to welcome everyone who's joining Media Center Ukrinform today. The 10th year the war in Ukraine is running. Today is 559th day since the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation of Ukraine. And today we're going to speak about the situation in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, about 1 year of the operation of the permanent monitoring mission of the IAEA at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Let me introduce our participant today. This is Oleg Korikov, acting head of the State Atomic Energy Regulatory Commission, Chief State Inspector of Nuclear and Radiation Safety of Ukraine. Welcome, hello, and glory to Ukraine, glory to its heroes. So let us begin by talking about the year of IAEA's mission here in Ukraine. How complete is this mission? How successful do you think it to be? What do you think have been its ups and downs? Thank you for your question. First of all, the presence of the IAEA's mission in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is a definite fact of support delivered to Ukraine by the international community, a consolidated support, because this Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant continues to be a Ukrainian power plant, and it will be returned under the control of the Ukrainian government. The position and stance of the civilized countries has been clearly determined and defined in the resolutions of the board of the chiefs of the IAEA that appeal with the Russian Federation to deoccupy, to demilitarize the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and to withdraw military formations out of the whole territory of Ukraine. The permanent presence of the IAEA's experts in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant enables us to receive the information about the situation of the equipment and the systems, as well as the illegal actions committed by the occupiers in the territory of the power plant. Due to the mission in the Zaporizhzhia power plant and other power plants, Ukraine remains open and transparent as a country, even in conditions of war under martial law and in hostilities. The presence of the IAEA's specialists enables us to debunk any fakes authorized and authored by the occupiers very swiftly and efficiently. For example, the ones that Ukraine was in a way implicit in the manufacturing of the dirty nuclear bomb. So these are real gains that we have. Some other gains or advantages that we can also operate, I would include the presence of the IAEA's mission exerts a certain pressure on the occupiers because they are not used to working in conditions of permanent monitoring. The situation that in Ukraine, unfortunately, we have to operate under permanently. The support via the network of response and support RANET is an extremely important element because due to this support, Ukraine has received means of personal protection, measuring equipment, significant supplies of telecommunications, aids and gadgets, vehicles that are of extreme importance for Ukraine at the moment. All of these supplies made by the countries who are supportive of Ukraine via this system, they are Romania, Sweden, Germany, Australia, Israel, Switzerland, Canada, and the US, of course. are funding the aid delivered to Ukraine via RUNET network. However, despite positive progress achieved, we, together with MAGATE, unfortunately haven't been successful enough in securing safety conditions in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, because unfortunately the nuclear power plant has transformed from the generator of power. You remember that last year it was still generating energy with the help of its two blocks. Its legitimate management has no connection or access to the power plant. No access to the legitimate management of the Ukrainian authorities still hasn't been reinstated. Also, the number of the Ukrainian personnel has decreased several-fold. The people who have the respective experience of operating the power plant, let me remind you, last year we had about 5,000 Ukrainian personnel working at the power plant. However, right now we have about 1,000 manpower still working in the station. However, another kind of personnel is being brought from the Russian nuclear power plants, from Belarusian power plants, and some other places, who are not qualified enough or have no adequate experience to operate the power plant. There is also a very high danger of cutting off power connection to Zaporizhzhia power plant, and you have probably remembered that 7 times there have been attempts made concerning severing power supply to Zaporizhzhia power plant. And last year, as a result of a missile attack launched by Russia at the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, as a result of emergency, all energy power blocks of the energy grid of Ukraine were disconnected. So this has nothing to do with radiation or nuclear safety. Next, the access to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is fully controlled by the Russian occupiers, which results in the increase of militarization, in instituting additional checkpoints, additional fire points, additional disruption of logistics. No full access to the IAEA representatives is being supplied to the full territory or to the supply points. So the occupiers are in charge of deciding what information should be submitted to the IAEA, what kind of information they need to transfer to them, and what territory they should have an access to. That is to say, the Russian terrorists are impacting the activities of the mission. Online data transmission of radiation monitoring of the industrial platform of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant still hasn't been restored. Let me remind you that in May, the occupiers stopped the transmission of data from Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to the Ukrainian respective institutions and thus to the whole international system, which has significantly exacerbated response to any potential nuclear disaster and thus deprives Ukraine, in fact, of a possibility to fully comply with the conditions of the International Convention on prompt response and information about radioactive emergencies. And this is under the terms and conditions when the whole system of response to radiation disasters in Ukraine is crippled, because let me remind you that the crisis center in Ukraine is occupied by the Russian occupiers and it is not capable of carrying out this function. And the external crisis center has no connection to the systems of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So in fact, emergency readiness is not being enabled. There are also firefighter units have been disassembled, the ones that are supposed to provide security measures to Zaporizhzhia power plant. So we are not capable of delivering on the 3 conventions due to the fact that there is no prompt occupation and demilitarization of Zaporizhzhia power plant. So let me state that The exploitation of the Zaporizhzhia power plant is operated with a different kind of violations, and the energy blocks haven't been put into cold stop modes. They haven't been put on stall. The equipment is not being maintained in workable state, operational state. Part of the territory of the nuclear power plant has been mined. Production facilities of power plants blocks 1, 2, 3, and 4 are being used as shelters for the military equipment, machinery, ordnance, and explosives. So what are we to do under these circumstances? According to the conditions in the desert, when, for example, there is a caravan that begins to move very slowly across the desert, they usually find the slowest camel and shoot it down. Thus, they immediately increase the speed of the whole caravan. In our situation, however, it's clear who is the state, the nuclear terrorist, who is the occupier, therefore, the whole civilized world, which is exploiting peaceful nuclear power plants, have to determine and isolate this nuclear terrorist, applying different sections, putting on hold any kinds of political and economic cooperation, and exercising political isolation by way of excluding Russia from different international organizations, including the IAEA. As of now, as part of the implementation of the peace formula by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, item 1, nuclear and radiation security, different consultations with the partner countries are still taking place in order to intensify oversight over Zaporizhzhia power plant by way of independent examination of a nuclear situation, by way of inviting representatives from the partner countries and the countries that have taken part in the implementation of item 1 of the peaceful formula suggested by President Zelensky. We are also in negotiations concerning the establishment of the International Coordination Center on nuclear and radiation security, with its headquarters being in Kiev, Ukraine. Within the framework of this center's operations, still discussions are rolling concerning the resumption of the safe operation of Zaporizhzhia power plant after its safety occupation. In summary, let me repeat my statement, which is very important, our stance, that the only way to ensure security and safety in Zaporizhzhia power plant is deoccupation, demilitarization, and its return to full control of energy atom, the state inspection of Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oleg. Of all of the information that we have heard, there are not too many gains that the IAEA's permanent mission has achieved. We have also heard from you that there are negotiations running concerning the appointment, concerning the situation that is being transmitted by the representatives of this permanent mission. So can we speak about the reformatting the work of the permanent mission? Thank you for your question. You know, the tools that are being discussed right now as part of item 1, President Zelensky's peace formula, are targeted at enhancing the role of the IAEA, expansion of its mandate, and providing this mission with additional resources to make basis for making sure that, in fact, it becomes impactful on the situation. It can exercise actual impact and provide assistance in terms of ensuring security. These are the negotiations and talks running right now, and it goes also about the expansion of the mandate and providing this mission with additional rights and obligations. Thank you. And I would like to ask you about some of the updates concerning what's going on in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, because we have recently seen some information that our armed forces in Ukraine have disabled some mines in the road leading to the Zaporizhzhia power plant and in the way of the permanent mission. Yes, thank you for this question. Yesterday, there was a successful rotation exercise of the IAEA's experts. So part of them exited, another part entered. So this is the 11th team, consecutive team that will be working. Just as usual, as was the case with all of the previous teams, we had the entry briefing, and as part of this entry briefing, we always explain to our counterparts from the IAEA the grounds on which we work with them. We introduce the legitimate management of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We also provide them with the contact details, all of the people on behalf of the nuclear representative office. We also introduce them to all of the questions that will become part of their mandate. So in a way, this is a technical briefing before they cross the border with Ukraine. Next, as of now in Zaporizhzhia power plant, all power blocks have been put in the cold stop mode except block number 6, which is still in the hot stop mode, and it generates steam, which is not clear for us, and it's a clear violation of the license agreement. As you know, the Kakhovka water cistern, waterfall, unfortunately was ruined. However, the pool, the reservoir of the cooling water nearby the power plant is sufficiently supplied with water in order to provide for security and safety, and in order to make sure that the nuclear fuel remains intact, both in the reactors and in the pools, and remains so for an extensive period of time, for months at least. It is critical from our perspective that the preparation for winterization takes place, because sub-zero temperatures will come, and of course there may be some risks arising of damaging the equipment, and of course there is no proper maintenance or repair in the adequate scope being provided. So the equipment is not maintained to full extent, and as a result of that, there are different violations arising, and some of the latest ones that we've been able to observe was when a leakage took place in power block number 4, and as a result of that, there was a potent danger, this leakage from the first circuit that washes the nuclear fuel and is connected to the second power block. So in fact, this is the violation of the physical barrier in the way of potential dissemination of radiation into the external atmosphere. So this is really serious. This violation took place as part of the lack of proper maintenance and repair work. So the situation is really dramatic. The risks are really high, and the chances to respond to these risks under the circumstances are minimal for Ukraine. And the last question, if I may, you have spoken about winterization preparation for autumn and winter. So what about other Ukrainian nuclear power plants? How well are they prepared for this period? Thank you for this question. I think that this question should go to the exploitation agency, not to the energy atom, but as part of my mandate, I can say that the maintenance and repair works are still running. So out of 9 power blocks, 6 have already been repaired, so 3 are in a state of maintenance and repair. Some of respective documents have been signed and respective decisions have been undertaken. So national nuclear power plants are in full swing of preparing for autumn and winter period, and we don't see any problems in terms of posing any danger in this particular component. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for taking this time. Thank you for participating in our telethon. I would like to remind you that with us was Oleg Korikov, acting head of the State Atomic Energy Regulatory Commission, Chief State Inspector of Nuclear and Radiation Safety of Ukraine. Thanks a lot, and please be reminded, our dear colleagues, that our next briefing will take place at 1500 hours. We'll be speaking about school education under Russian occupation. We'll be speaking about inciting enmity and destroying Ukrainian identity, which is being caused by the Russian occupiers. So stay with us, and we thank our Ukrainian armed forces. Glory to Ukraine, glory to its heroes. Thank you.